Build Your Business listeners. This is Matt Reynolds, your host for the podcast, and you are listening to what we are calling the legacy episodes. And really, these are the pre-episodes that really led to this podcast, the Build Your Business podcast. This is really my life's work and my brother's life's work in building your business. And so they were originally published in the Barbell Logic podcast as part of the Principles or Coaching Success series, but really touch on similar topics to the Build Your Business podcast: how to improve your productivity, how to set and accomplish your goals, deprioritize urgent tasks, to focus on what is most important to you, and most importantly, to become a better person and leader and business owner overall. I'm proud to bring you these podcasts. Again, many years of life's work, several years of podcasts, and several decades of business ownership. Hope you enjoy them and learn from them. You're listening to Barbell Logic, brought to you by Barbell Logic Online Coaching, where each week we take a systematic walk through strength training and the refining power of voluntary hardship. Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. It is another Thursday Principles Day. I'm here with my brother, Chris Reynolds, and last week was pretty serious. Talked a lot about de-escalation and the value of de-escalation in family and culture and all those sort of things. We're going to have a little lighter day today. Something that we've actually sort of discovered on our own. I don't know that our parents really taught us this, but
no, but I think it must be deep in the genes when you think about.
It must be, especially with mom. Is we are very pro early to bed, early to rise people.
Yep.
And I would say the caveat to this is, do I know there are outliers that are still like highly productive people that don't go to bed early and don't get up early? Yes, of course. Some of you are outliers. I would say for everyone, if you have control of this, you should sleep on a schedule. You should go to bed at the same time every night. You should get up at the same time every morning, even if that means going to bed at midnight or 1 a.m. and waking up at 9 or whatever. That should basically be non-negotiable. Now, if you're a fireman, if you're an EMT, or you're a first responder of some sort, if you can't, sometimes you can't control that, right? You're a nurse, you work overnight shift, and you work 3 days on and 4 days off. I don't know how people do that. That would be very difficult. But for us, while it was never really taught to us, it was modeled well, I think, by our parents. And we have found as we've grown older, the value of going to bed early, one, and even more importantly, I would argue, getting up early in the morning.
Yeah. So there's a really great book called Why We Sleep that gives you some really, really good information on how your body actually handles sleep, the effect of alcohol on sleep, the effect of food on sleep, the effect of caffeine on sleep, and just all of these various pieces. And one thing that I will say, the book helped me understand that, society rewards early to bed, early to rise.
Yes.
And I like it. I mean, I've been doing it for so long. I can't not do it. It's just what my body does.
Yep.
But what you said earlier about going to bed on a schedule and waking up at the same time, I actually think that's probably the most critical.
It is the most critical, for sure.
If your brain lights up at night and that is when you do your best work, well then, at night, do your best work. Yeah. And then wake up later. That's fine. But just go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time, and your life will change dramatically the day you accept something that I was forced to accept basically once we had children, which is that the weekend is no different than all the other days.
No.
Right? This is just a giant thing that has been perpetuated for some time, and I don't totally understand why. People have this sense that the weekend is like, well, that's my day to sleep in. That's when I catch up on my sleep. Guess what? Catching up on your sleep is not real.
Right.
And what you really want is you want to have consistently good sleep across your entire life.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is by going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time every day, including the weekend.
So that your body develops its own schedule.
Gets its own
to the point
rhythm.
where I don't even set an alarm anymore. I never
Oh,
set
I don't
an
either.
alarm.
I don't need one.
Well, you're retired. You don't count. But
Okay, I don't count.
I
That's fair.
work, and I still don't set an alarm. I used to set my alarm for 6 a.m. in case something terrible happened and I accidentally slept till 6 a.m., which almost never happened. And now I think to myself, if my body needs to sleep till 6 a.m., which it does once a quarter,
get that extra sleep, that 6 a.m. sleep,
then I'm not going to set the alarm. I'm not going to wake up. So I just wake up when I need to, which this morning was at 3:14. Now that's earlier than I wanted. This morning I was pissed off because I woke up at 3:14 and I had to pee, and then I peed, and then I'm awake. It's the problem. If I wake up in the 2s or before, I can go back to sleep.
Yeah.
If I wake up in the 3s, I'm in trouble. And the 4s doesn't even bother me because I'm like, well, now it's wake up time. So, but
4s are fine for me. I don't like the 3s, but I also this morning woke up way earlier than I expected to,
which is
and I was
fine
up.
because here's what I love about it. First off, by the way, sleep hygiene thing. We've done a podcast on sleep hygiene, and it probably, I don't know if we pulled the old episodes and we're going to re-release them and like digitally remaster them and whatnot. But I got a new CPAP about 10 days ago, and it's a travel CPAP. It's like the size of a deck of cards, but what I love about it is it's smart CPAP. So it only gives me the pressure that I need, and it also runs to an app on my phone and tells me the quality of sleep that I get. So it tells me how many times in the night. First off, it tells me how long I used it. It tells me how much sleep I had, how many times I broke the seal on my nose, which means like something was wrong. Like I rolled over on my side and broke the seal, or I pulled it off or whatever. Or maybe I just pulled it off to go to the bathroom. It's got 6 or 7 sort of stats, and then it tells me, it ranks my quality of sleep on a scale of 0 to 100. And I'm averaging between 95 and 98 every single day, which is
awesome.
Is great.
That's
great. I feel amazing. What I love about getting up early in the morning, and this is maybe the most important point that we make. If you hate this, as with most things we talk about, if there's a principle that you want to adopt and you hate it, and you do it with white-knuckle discipline for 3 weeks, and you still hate it, you should go back and not do that thing, because it's not sustainable.
It just means you're a night person. That's all it means.
It's not sustainable. So when Jocko Willink gets up every morning, takes a picture of his watch at 4:06, and, hashtag rise and grind or whatever, that guy loves getting up that early. And I do too. And you do too. And so I never want to make anybody feel bad about not, by the way, I don't know that it's uber awesome to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So when I say early to bed, early to rise, like going to bed at 10 and getting up at 6, that's fantastic. Do that. You don't need to do what I do, which is like fall asleep at 8:15 and get up at 4 at 3:45, right? Which is what I do. And so, but here's what I love about it. This morning I got up at like 3:15, which is way early. That's early for me. I laid in bed for about 20 minutes trying to go back to sleep. I was like, nope, this is not going to happen. I can tell. I'm awake. So I got up. And I got so much work done. By 6 o'clock in the morning, I had done so much work because I still slept about 7 hours last night. So I went to bed early. And so my brain was fresh and it worked well. And I got a ton of work done. And nobody bothers you at 3:15 in the morning. That's what's amazing.
I mean, nobody else is up.
Because nobody's up.
Phil and I used to, when I was working, Phil, our cousin, my business partner, we'd cross each other, actually. He's a late night guy. Yeah. So he's tried the early morning thing before for an extended period of time. It literally doesn't work for him. Also, his schedule, like his body seems to run on a bizarre clock that even he dislikes. But Phil would be sort of finishing his work day at about, oftentimes, around 4 in the morning.
About the time you're waking up.
And I've just started sipping on my first cup of coffee,
Yeah,
you
right.
know, and I'd say, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he'd say, "Oh, I'm so," you know,
right,
he's just like
right.
almost in a coma. And I'm like as high as my energy gets. I've always said I wake up in the morning, my energy is at 100, and every hour that passes, it drops.
That's right.
And
I'm
just
the same.
continuously drops until I fall asleep.
That's right.
And he is the opposite. He wakes up in the morning, his energy's low, and it sort of slowly curves up until almost midnight, really.
I think later than that, a lot of times for him.
Yeah.
Now, what's weird for me is, and where I can't empathize, although I know it's the case, is for me doing work, especially work that is sort of mentally challenging, wakes me up more, heightens me, gets me amped up. It doesn't put me to sleep. And so for people who stay up late and do that sort of thing at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, how do you ever get to sleep?
Well, and a lot of times those people actually struggle to sleep.
That's right. They struggle to go to bed.
Yeah.
And then they probably sleep well in the morning. They're sleeping great at 9.
Yeah, they're blasting through 10, 11 o'clock. I mean, they just keep
That's
going.
right.
I had, you know, when I was working, I would wake up early and I would, you know, do the same thing you do. I mean, just barrel through as much work as I could. But then at night, sometimes some kind of emergency would pop up and I would have to start working again at like 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And I had that problem.
Oh, I can't go
By
to
the
sleep
time
at night.
10, 11,
Oh, sure.
midnight came around, I'm still, my brain's at, you know, it's peaked back up.
Yeah.
It thinks it's morning time or something. And then going to sleep at that point is almost impossible for
same
me.
for me. Same for me. Yeah, if we've had like, and usually the other issue with that for guys like us is it's usually because the shit hit the fan. You know,
Yeah.
like,
So you're in a high stress situation anyway.
yeah, your mentor sued you in federal court or something. So you're like, oh, I guess I'm awake for 4 straight days. And so you stay up all night long. And so it's tough to sleep anyway. But for me, my normal day, as a matter of fact, we hired a new leadership, a sales manager, a phenomenal guy. And I told him, you know, I was talking to him about his work schedule and what that might look like, and I wanted to give him the freedom to do that and work when he wanted. But I said, listen, if you try to get a hold of me after about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I will respond tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Because if the world's not burning down after about 3 in the afternoon, I'm not responding. And for other people, it's the opposite. And one of the things I love about Barbell Logic is it gives our staff and specifically our coaches the freedom to do it whenever they want. But here's the thing. When you're a late night worker, you are competing against other things. Always.
Absolutely.
People do stuff at night. You have dinner, you have drinks, it's social time. Your family wants to watch movies. Your significant other wants to like Netflix and chill. You want to have a little like special times. All those things occur late at night, and they are competing for your time. Nothing competes for my time at 4:30 in the morning. Nothing.
Yeah.
My phone never goes off. There's no TV to watch. There's no social hour to be had. Like, there's nothing going on. And so for me, my wife gets up every day about 7:15 is when she gets up. And my youngest gets up at 8 and my oldest gets up at 9. And so we've carried this out in my life. We're practicing what we preach. So my oldest, who's 15, almost 16, she wants to stay up late and wake up late. And so I said, okay, I will work with that, especially it's the summertime, but you have to be on a consistent schedule. So the rule is all electronics up for her at 10, and she must be in bed quiet at 11, trying to go to sleep. The only thing she's allowed to do at 11 is read. At 11, she can read. But typically she goes to sleep at 11, and she gets up around 9. Now, 11 and 9 is 10 hours sleep, but she's also 15 and 16. Kids need a little more.
She needs it.
She needs a little more sleep then, right? But she has to get up at 9. I'm not waking her up at 9. She's got an alarm. The younger one, she's an hour earlier, so her electronics have to be up at 9. She has to be in bed at 10, and she has to get up at 8. By 8, that's the deal. And my wife goes to bed when I go to bed, and then she gets up on her own, between 7 and 7:30 pretty much every morning.
Yeah, I mean, same basic situation with our kids. They definitely got that early morning situation from us. And when we wake up, I typically wake up about 5. Jenny normally wakes up about 5:30, and the kids are all awake at 6:30 every single morning. Yeah. They're never not.
And what do they do when they wake up at 6:30? They crawl in, they like come into your bed, or they come downstairs to the kitchen and start like.
Well, no, we're already downstairs.
They're going for food.
Well, we do breakfast as a family and always have. I kind of took that from our family because when we grew up, we always had breakfast together. That's always been a meal we've done together. So
interesting.
That's
actually
my
really
kids
cool.
Wake
we don't
up,
do that.
Yeah, we always do breakfast together.
We only do dinner together.
And I even make something very different than what they have. Like I have like cream of rice and protein powder. So not a lot of people want my breakfast.
Sure.
But I normally will make breakfast for the kids. When they wake up, we have a no TV rule. We're really low on electronics on the house. But they do work through they have like reading that they're trying to get done. And then their schools actually set them up with some different tools on their iPad so they can use those electronics to like do some education stuff. And that was just trying to set a pattern with the kids early that we've found to be helpful, which is wake up in the morning and do your mental work first. Yeah. In this last little bit, in their last 3 or 4 weeks of school that was remote because of COVID, they figured out that they could wake up in the morning and before breakfast, they could basically have their entire schoolwork done.
Right.
And they loved it, but it took them a while to get there. They were used to the old routine where it's like you wake up, you do this thing, then you eat breakfast, then you go to school. But they could wake up and just first thing start doing their schoolwork, and it worked really, really well. Which matches my own approach as well and has yours as well. Right? You wake up and your brain is running at 100.
That's right.
Ironically, right now, by the way, if you were watching the screen, you would notice that all three of my children
right now
are in the screen at this exact moment. So.
That's right. We do the same. So I made a change. It's been amazing. So I'm sure you have this as well. We've got security cameras, not just outside the house, but inside the house in several places. With a 15-year-old kid, I have a security camera in the library, which for people who know me know that the library is 90% whiskey and 10% books. And so there is a camera in there. And so what we do is we have our kids charge their electronics in the library at night. So all their electronics, so the youngest has to charge her electronics at 9 p.m. and the oldest at 10 p.m. And I can go back and check. And I don't check every night. I check about every 4 or 5 days, and I just go through and make sure they put it in, somewhere in that ballpark. And they charge their electronics, so I can see on camera when they charge their electronics, and also that they didn't steal the Pappy Van Winkle, which is good. And then so I know when they actually turn their stuff in. And then in the morning it's the same thing. So they have to get up in the morning, they have to eat breakfast, they have to do their chores, which is not very much, and clean their room and wash their bodies and do their hair, brush their teeth, and then they have to do their schoolwork, which in the summertime for both my kids right now is just math. They have to do sort of Khan Academy type stuff, online math. And when that's done, and they've gotten approval from a parent, then they can go back into the library and they can get their electronics back out. And so they've realized that I get my electronics and can do what I want. We've got Olympic-sized swim pool here. They can go to the pool. They can play on their electronics and do all that stuff, but not until all the work is done. Yeah. And so they've realized that they can do that. And by even my oldest, even though her schedule is 2-3 hours later than mine every day, she even said today, she's like, I really like the schedule. And we're going to Mexico tomorrow, and she said, I'm going to keep the schedule in Mexico. She's like, I still want to get up at the same time, and I want to eat breakfast with the family. It's an all-inclusive place. And we're taking our mom and our sister and her kids, and so we're trying to figure out. I'm probably going to push my schedule back about an hour to stay with the rest of the family, because I don't want to be like, hey, we're going to bed at 8:15 and we're getting up at 4:15. So I'll push it back a little bit. I'll get up early. I'll do a little bit of work. Even on vacation, I can still do 2 hours. If I get up at 5, I can do 2 hours worth of work, which if it's completely undistracted, Pomodoros, that's 4 Pomodoros. You can do a ton of work in 4 Pomodoros.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then at 7, I'll go down to the gym and I'll do an hour of gym work. And what I do is kind of one lift a day when I'm traveling. One lift a day, some accessories, and maybe some conditioning, or which might just be like 15 minutes of fast walking on a treadmill, whatever's left in the hour. And then there's a spa there with like hot tubs and cold tubs and stuff. And then I'll go and do that for a little while. And then I'll meet the family for breakfast. And I'll eat breakfast and we'll go out to the beach all day. And I don't have to work the rest of the day. And that's what's nice about that early morning routine is like for when you do things like vacation, you can do just the urgent stuff and get it out of the way. You know, we talk a lot about urgent and important. On vacation, I'm not really worried about doing important stuff. What's weird for me, and I don't know if you're this way as well, is when I'm on vacation, important stuff happens a lot because my brain is free to do it.
It always did for me. Vacation was the time where I would get a new, my wife makes fun of me endlessly for this. I would get a new Moleskine book.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One of these like leather bound, empty notebooks. Right. And I would get it empty when we go on vacation so that I had a place to write all my thoughts down. By the time I got done with vacation, it's full.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was full cover to cover. Now, I don't have as much of that today. Most of that now is just taken up with reading time. But the fact that you could keep a consistent schedule on vacation, and again, while I was working, it would feel bad for me in a day if I didn't do something. Like I liked getting up early and getting some things done. The other thing that really would have been helpful for me, and anybody's listening that's a student, man, I wish I knew this when I was in college, because I was already transitioned into a morning person by the time I got to college. I just didn't know it yet. And I think I could have done better. I could have had better focused work. I did well in college anyway, but I did it in, little bits of time here and there, and usually in the afternoon and evening. I think I would have done better if I would have figured out that I could get up at 5 a.m. and, do any work that needed to be done, and then go to my classes and basically have the rest of my day to do what I needed to do.
Yeah. That's what I did. So I recognized early on if I was writing like a research paper and it was 8:00 at night and my brain wasn't working, I would just go to bed. I'd be 19 years old, and I'd set my alarm for 3, and I'd get up at 3. When most college kids would be like, "What? We stay up till 3. We don't get up at 3."
Yeah.
And I would get up at 3, and I would sit at the computer. And I would write my paper at 3, and I would have a class. Maybe the paper was due at 8 a.m., 5 hours later. But I worked so much more efficiently in the morning. And to this day, I do the same thing. Like I recognize that's why I shut it down. By the way, for me, it also creates this really clean break from business CEO Matt to husband and father Matt, from husband and daddy Matt. So that at mid-afternoon, whenever I decide to sort of shut the work down, the work is done, and I get to just do stuff with the family the rest of the day. And so, again, I'm not saying that there's like a moral conundrum with people who work late at night. They make it work for them. But it has to be harder to figure out that work-life balance when you work at night. If your brain works better at night, it works better at night. It's what it is. You got to do what you can. But for me, it's the opposite. I can emote, and I can love on my family, and I can make good dinners, and I can watch TV and watch, especially with my family. Like we'll watch shows together and stuff. I can do that in the evening, but in the morning when my brain is fresh, I need to work.
Yeah, I've thought about. We're an interesting two people in this particular circumstance because our sister's different, right?
Yep.
But our mom and dad mom always woke up super early, and her dad, our grandfather, always woke up super early. So there's some genetic component that's in there. But also interesting, our father would wake up at 3 a.m. on Sunday mornings when he was going to give his sermons at church.
Yeah.
And that's when he would do like the bulk of the bulk of the work, the finishing touches,
right.
And knock it out before he got in there. It was always 3 o'clock in the morning. I just remember that was literally always the case. And so some combination of those two things, dad I don't think naturally woke up as early as mom did, but he had figured out that his brain works better in the morning as well.
Yeah, I texted mom this morning at 5:06 because our flight leaves at 5 a.m. tomorrow. And so I went and I said, hey, let me check everybody in for the flight. There's 8 of us. So I went and checked everybody in, had to put in the passport numbers again and stuff. And I texted at 5:06, and at 5:07, mom was like, great. And she, and she sent a little emoji of a palm tree. She was up. She was already up.
Yep. And it's always been that way.
It's just the way it was. There are pictures of me. I don't know if you've seen these back in our first house in Springfield, which I moved away from when I was 4. So I was pre-4, whatever that was, before I went to Memphis. Mom took a picture of me once, and she there's one picture of this, and she said this was every morning. I would wake up before mom would, and I would often wake up and watch like the ag report, which is what comes on in the morning before the early morning news, the farmers report. And this was back when everybody had tube TVs. This would have been like 82, 82, 83. Yep. And tube TVs, and the TVs, the nice ones, were in the big wooden box on the floor. So it was like the TV is basically in a coffin on the floor. And they would walk in, and I would be watching the ag report with the volume way down, crisscross applesauce sitting on the floor, right in front of the TV, so I could hear it, because I wanted to see what the corn futures were. And
it was important
and whatnot.
Critical stuff.
When I was like 3 years old, and they were like, this guy's a weirdo. And really, it sort of makes sense what I've done for the rest of my life.
I did not discover it until later. I mean, I will say I was a later sleeper of the 3 of us, you and me and Abby, when I was young. And then somewhere in the college age time frame, I started realizing like, whoa, I can go to bed and wake up early. Now, I did always go to bed, like late for me was always like, if I went to bed at midnight, that was late.
Right. Now,
I go to bed, I am asleep by 10 p.m. every night.
Yes.
And that's about the same thing that I do. And I wake up at 5.
Yeah. Yeah. I, just a couple weeks ago, this happens about once a year, if not less. I took some staff members who were staying in Springfield, who shall remain nameless, and it definitely wasn't Nikki Sims, Andrew Jackson. And we went and we had some drinks in downtown Springfield. And, I can hold my liquor. That's not the problem. The problem was we stayed out too late. And we went to bed late, and then I got up, and then I still woke up at like 5:45, having 3 hours sleep. And I felt like dog shit for a week, not for a day. And it wasn't like hungover. It was like lack of sleep. It's I can't like
you get in that rhythm, and you're supposed to hold it. I mean, your body knows what to do with that rhythm, and that's why. I mean, what people really want when they sleep in on the weekend is they want that opportunity to not wake up to an alarm.
Sure.
To sleep as long as their body needs to. And what I'm saying, what you're saying is that is available to you every day of your life.
That's right.
But you have to get over that only occurs on the weekend, and you have to make little sacrifices in your day to day. And the truth is, while the point in which you wake up is probably the most critical to your productivity, what allows you to wake up early is going to bed early.
It's following the schedule.
Yeah. So you put it on your calendar if you have to, give yourself a reminder. But I agree. I like this idea of like 3 weeks, right? Where you just do it. You force yourself to do it. Even if it doesn't feel right, you force yourself to do it. And then at the end of that, if you're still like, you know what, I hate it. It totally doesn't work. My life is worse. Then you're probably just a night person and it won't work.
Or, and you could start by just backing the thing up an hour. So like if you're going to bed at 9 and you're getting up at 5, try going to bed at 10 and getting up at 6. Yeah. And if that still feels like crap, go to bed at 11 and get up at 7. If that still feels, and until you find a spot where it's like, okay, I can do this, and the day is coming when it's no longer discipline. I'm motivated to do it. That's my only thing with guys like Jocko, and then I want to be clear about with guys like us. Like, I'm not disciplined to get up at 4 a.m.
No,
I'm motivated to get up at 4 a.m.
Also, I literally mean this. I would prefer that every day of my life, I wake up not to an alarm. I know what it's like to be in,
Sure.
REM sleep or level 5 sleep or something like that and be woken up by a buzzing alarm or some miserable thing. It's awful. Like, you feel terrible. I never want to wake up that way. I want to wake up totally naturally every single day, and you just have to have a little discipline to get it done.
That's right. I'm trying to think of how often an alarm wakes me up at this point. It's not more than once or twice a quarter. Way less than 10 times a year. I'll wake up to an alarm. Really? Well, tomorrow I'll wake up to an alarm, probably. Because my flight leaves at 5 a.m., which means I have to be at the airport at 4, which means I have to wake up at 3. So I'm going to have these alarms at 3, and it will probably wake me up, although it might not, because I'm still like a little kid.
You might sleep really lightly and wake up anyway. That's what I used to do.
Me too.
On an early morning one, I'd be constantly terrified that I was going to oversleep.
Sure, and so I make everybody in the house set alarms. So I set my alarm. Rachel sets her alarm. I have my kids set. So that way it's like, okay, if the power goes out or something weird happens,
we still have alarms.
There's all these alarms everywhere. We still do it, so I don't have to worry about it. And I'll do that too. If I have like an early morning, like even if I have a business call like 7 a.m, I'll set an alarm that day for 6:30, knowing that there's no chance that alarm will go off, but just so I can relax and not be stressed. And I'll still wake up at 5. I'll still wake up at 4:30, but I know that if I happen to sleep late, the alarm's still going to go off at 6:30, and I'm not going to miss the meeting at 7.
Yeah,
I'll do
definitely.
that. So those are some of the reasons that we go early to bed, early to rise. And again, before you even take on early to bed, early to rise, take on the schedule. Like, go to bed at the same time every day, wake up at the same time every day. We do that. Everybody in my family does that. Everybody in Chris's family does that. We don't all go to bed at the same time or wake up at the same time, but we do go to bed and wake up at the same time every day for that person. They have their bedtime, they have their wake up time, and I would challenge you to do that if you have control in that. Again, some of you don't. Some of you work jobs and you've got these weird sort of swing shifts and overnight third shifts that are 3 days on and 4 days off and whatnot. But if you have control of that, just start by going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, and then experiment with getting up a little earlier every day. And what you'll find is that the freedom to do the things, for those of you that work normal jobs, like an 8 to 5 job, I would far rather get up early and work out and then go to work and then come home from work at 5 and have my day be done.
Yeah.
And get to spend time with my family. And we've never worked jobs like that. Like, it's just all sort of strange when you own your own business. Like, your work is never done. But even if I worked a basic blue collar job, that's what I would do. And I've got guys that do that. I have guys that when I get up at 4, like I have a couple guys on the East Coast. When I wake up at 4, they've already submitted their videos on True Coach for online coaching at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. their time. They're done with their workout. And I'm like, man,
that's hardcore.
That's early. And then we're not talking Singapore. Yeah. We're talking 1 hour ahead of me. And that's what they do. And then they go work a blue collar job and they come home at 5 and they spend time with their family the rest of the night.
They're done.
So it's a pretty good life. So early to bed, early to rise. Ben Franklin knew what he was talking about. You've been listening to another episode of the Principal series on Barbell Logic. These are our Thursday series. We'll see you on Monday for a content episode. Again, would love your 5-star reviews on iTunes. It helps us out a ton in the rankings. We are pushing closer and closer to 1,000 5-star reviews on iTunes. So if you haven't taken just a second, give us 10 seconds. Hop on iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and share the podcast with a friend or family member for sure. We enjoy that a lot. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on Monday.